میخونه حسینم هرچند داری با همه از کرم عباس است خلقت جنت حق لطف کمه خلقت جنت حق از شیعه هر گز نهرا زد شد کین دشمن شیعه هر گز نهرا زد شد کین دشمن دین ما تحت لوای علم عباس است دین ما تحت لوای علم ابو فاضل مدد مدد
خدا را شکر خدا را شکر حسین جانم تو را دارم حسین جانم براہ تو سرو جانم بود حاضر کہ عشق تو بہر منزل مرا ہمدم مرا ناصر تو ہی دینا تو ایمانا حسین جانم تو را دارا لہو بہتا ہے بہنے دو کہ جا جاتی ہے جانے دو چراغ ظلم گر ظالم جلاتا ہے جلانے دو بجھائیں گے لہو سے ہم حسین جانا تو را دارا نغاف کثرت دشمن نبی میں بے کسی درد حمیدانام کے لطف تو در احوالا بود شامل بعشق خویش نازانم حسین جانم تو را دارا قسم عباس سوک بلکی قسم زینب کی چادر کی نہیں ممکن کہ رک جائے عزاداری یہ سرور کی نہ رک پائے گئے ماتم حسین جانا تو را دارا شہادت آرزوئے دل، شہادت افتخار من بنزد حضرت زہرا، ہمیں نست اعتبار من منو ان عشق چشمانہ حسین جانا ترا دارا، شہیدوں کی جو مائیں ہیں، فرشتوں کا سلام ان پر، جواب آئی کی میت سے جو بہنے لپٹی رو رو کر، یہی کہتی رہی ہر دم حسین جانا ترا دارا، جفا کے اس تسلسل کی نہ کوئی آخری حد ہے، اب ایسے میں سہارا بس ولائے آل احمد ہے، وسیلہ ہے تیرا پرچم حسین جانا ترا دارا، ولائے پن جتن لیتی ہے شاید انتہا ہم سے، کہ قاتل مانگتا ہے زندگی ہم سے، یہ جا ہم سے ولا ہوگی نہ دل سے کم حسین جانا ترا دارا، کہانی اسر حاضر کی رقم نوشاد نے کی ہے، سنو لبیک یا مہدی قلم کی نوک کہتی ہے، یہی واجد کہیں گے ہم حسین جانا ترا دارا،
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، الحمد للہ رب العالمین، وصلی اللہ علی سیدنا محمد وآلہ الطیبین الطاہرین، ولا سیما بقیت اللہ فی الارضین وحجتہ فی العالمین، روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه فداء. واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم وغاصبي حقوقهم وجاحدي مناقبهم ومنكري فضائلهم من الآن إلى أبد الآبدين. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أم لهم شركاء شرعوا لهم من الدين ما لم يأذن به الله ولولا كلمة الفصل لقضي بينهم وإن الظالمين لهم عذاب أليم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم الشريف. Assalamu alaikum. May Allah bless you and may Allah keep you well and may Allah give us all health and faith and the ability to love and devote our lives to Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Our discussion on the topic of Taqlid would analyze a hadith from the Holy 12th Imam, which is in the form of a letter. And this is quite a well-known letter, which is a lengthy letter. However, one portion, one statement from this holy letter is commonly quoted by various groups in order to advance their own agendas, namely two groups. Those who want to promote Taqlid and those who want to persuade the Shia that Taqlid is a legitimate means to gain knowledge of Islamic rulings. They use a sentence from this letter in order to advance their theory of Taqlid. And then there's the group of Wilayatul Faqih who try to persuade the Shia of the legitimacy of the theory of Wilayatul Faqih on the basis of this hadith and additionally one more hadith which is known as the Maqbula of Umar ibn al-Handala. So without any further ado, let's go to the text of this hadith and analyze whether the verbiage of the hadith, the text of the hadith, the wording of the Holy Imam alayhi salatu wassalam is amenable to the meaning that is desired by each of these two parties. However, our main focus is, of course, to the party that promotes Taqlid. Nonetheless, we shall mention the party of Wilayatul Faqih as well. Kamaluddin wa Tamamun Ni'mah, written by our famed and respectable and greatly revered scholar As-Saduq rahimahullah, published in Qom at the year 1429, 13 years ago. This book, page number 510, hadith number 4, Muhammad ibn Isam al-Kulayni says that Muhammad ibn Yaqub al-Kulayni stated that his uncle Ishaq ibn Yaqub, he narrates, Sa'altu Muhammad ibn Uthman al-Amri, that I requested the second deputy of the Holy 12th Imam, may Allah bless him and may Allah hasten his appearance, to deliver a letter from me to the 12th Imam. Which letter? This letter contained Masaila ushkilat alayya, questions and queries that were burdening me, questions that were perplexing to me. I had posed certain questions that were difficult in this letter, and I requested the deputy to deliver this letter to the Holy Imam alayhi salam. So I received an answer. I received a tawqi, a letter with the handwriting of our Lord, our Master, the Imam of the age, may peace be unto him, and may Allah hasten his appearance. And the passage of the letters of the response of the Imam alayhi salam begins here, and it goes all the way to here, and the next page, all the way to here. So it's a page and a half almost. So you see a page and a half, page 512. Let's go back to my apologies. Let's go back to page 511. So a page and a half is the answer of the Imam alayhi salam to the questions of this respected person. Now, it's worth noting, and you should remember, that the letter that contained the questions have not reached us and has not been narrated to us, which would have been quite helpful for us to understand the answers of the Imam alayhi salam, because always when we have the question and the answer, the question always helps us understand what is the answer referring to. And if we do not have the question, sometimes the answer could be ambiguous, and in this case, that is the case. So the answer is quite lengthy. There are several different segments to the letter, over a page and a half. However, there's one sentence here. This sentence here, which is often quoted in order to substantiate taqlid and in order to substantiate wilayat al-faqih, this portion. And I'm going to read this segment of the letter, and I'm going to translate it, and we'll see whether this proves taqlid. And our foremost objective in this discussion, in this lecture, is whether taqlid is valid or not. Wilayat al-faqih is secondary to this discussion and not as important. And inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala, in the future, if Allah gives me time and the ability and the opportunity, I would like to present to you in-depth discussions on the topic of wilayat al-faqih, but that is for later days. وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثُ الْوَاقِعَةِ. As far as al-hawadith al-waqi'ah go, al-hawadith means incidents, occurrences, incidents, occurrences, events. Al-waqi'ah. Al-waqi'ah, you could translate them in 3 or 4 different ways. That have occurred, that are occurring, or that will occur. So وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثُ الْوَاقِعَةِ, as far as the events that have occurred are concerned, a different way to translate this hadith. And they're all valid, but we do not know which is the right translation because there is not enough clues in the text of the hadith. We don't have the question. If we had the question, we would know which events is the person asking about them and which events is the Imam alayhi salam responding about. So we do not know specifically what events the Imam alayhi salam is talking about. So one way to translate, one possible translation of this hadith is, as far as those events that have occurred are concerned. Other translation, as far as those events that are occurring now, presently, are concerned. And another way to translate, as far as those events that shall occur, that will occur in the future, that are going to take place, are concerned. So this answer and of the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam are referring to which events, which occurrences, which incidents. There are different possibilities here. Perhaps the person who asked the question, he was referring to specific incidents, events that happened at that time or were happening in those days. So what should we do about this and that and that? And the Holy Imam alayhi salatu wasalam is replying and referring to those events. We do not know. It could be about past events, something that has happened in the past, something that pertains to events in history, or is this person's lifetime, or in his village, or in his tribe. So Imam alayhi salam, those events that have occurred. Or perhaps he's talking about general occurrences that will happen in the future, or some specific things that are expected to occur in the future. So we do not know these events, what does the Imam alayhi salam means by these events? And that is important to remember. And that is key to remember. وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثُ الْوَاقِعَةِ, as far as those events, and then al-waqi'ah, that have occurred, that will occur, that are occurring, specific events or general events that shall happen, any event that happens. So this is an ambiguous wording, and we do not know the meaning because there's not enough clue in the text. If there were clues, words, or there was the question available to us, the question that this is the answer to, then it would be easier for us to infer what the Holy Imam alayhi salam means. However, we do not have that. Okay. As far as those events are concerned, farji'u. So deliberate, or course to, ila ruwati hadithina, to the narrators of our hadith. Deliberate and consult and seek answers from the narrators of our hadith. Go, refer to the narrators of our hadith. As far as those events are concerned, refer to the narrators of our hadith, narrators of our words. فَإِنَّهُمْ, because verily, because verily they are my hujjah over you. They are my deputies over you. Because they are my proofs over you. Hujjah is a person or a thing that does not leave you any excuse. That because of his presence, you would have no excuse to abandon anything. So Imam alayhi salam is the hujjah of Allah. He is the guide of Allah. Quran is the word of Allah. Hadith is the hujjah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Why? Because since Quran is present, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came, the holy Imams alayhim salam explained, a hadith came to us, religious guidance reached us, therefore these are hujjah. They do not leave any excuse for us. They end all excuses. They end all reasons one may have in order not to follow the path of Allah, in order not to submit to the will of Allah. So they end the excuse. So these narrators of our hadith, they are my hujjah. They are my hujjah, means they are my guides, so much so that due to their presence, due to their efforts, you have no excuse. There remains no excuse for you. And they end all excuses, all reasons one may have not to follow, not to understand the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Okay. وَأَنَا حُجَّةُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِمْ, and I am the hujjah of Allah over them. Now, this is the segment of the hadith that pertains to the discussion that we are following today, because this portion of the hadith has been used by any number of scholars in order to convince you of the validity of taqlid. And another segment of scholars, they use these words in order to convince you of the legitimacy of wilayat al-faqih. Now, how does their argument proceed? The following is the argument of the people who would say this answer of the Holy Imam alayhi salatu wasalam is relevant to taqlid. Because the Imam alayhi salam is saying, وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثُ الْوَاقِعَةِ, all the events that are going to occur, all the events, all the questions that may arise in your life. So they forget this discussion, which is tries to promote taqlid, or even the discussion that tries to convince you of the validity of wilayat al-faqih. They set aside and they ignore the ambiguity in this term, al-hawadith al-waqi'ah, the events that have occurred, or the events will occur, or the occurring events, or the events specific to this person's tribe or his life, right? Which we do not know. So they set that argument aside. They interpret the hawadith al-waqi'ah as follows. All the events that are going to take place, all questions, all situations that you shall face in your lifetime, as a person, as a family, as a society, that you will face. And all these matters, farji'u, you have to refer to the narrators of hadith. Who are narrators of hadith? Mujtahideen, the jurists. The jurists, they are to refer to them. And refer to them for what? Refer to them to have fun with them? No, refer to them in order to follow them. So in all questions of your life, in all situations of your life, in all matters of your life, as a person, as a father, as a mother, as a person who prays to Allah, as a family, as a society, every detailed, minute, or every major question, jurists. Ruwat al-Ahadith, they are jurists. And that is another very important premise in their discussion, that narrators of hadith are the jurists. So you have to refer to them. And we refer to them, obviously, you refer to them to what? To listen to them and follow them. And that is taqlid. Therefore, their word is hujjah for you. Their word has the power, has the same value as the word of the Holy Imam alayhi salam, especially when the Holy Imam alayhi salam enunciates. And he clearly states, فَإِنَّهُمْ حُجَّتِي عَلَيْكُمْ. These mujtahideen, they are hujjah. They are representatives. They are the proofs, the guides of the Holy Imam alayhi salam over us. Therefore, their word is hujjah, and that is taqlid. Taqlid is none else. That the mujtahid's word is hujjah for you. Mujtahid's word it serves as the end of all excuses for you. You have to. There is no debate after. If mujtahid issues a fatwa, end of debate. Follow it. You have to accept it and follow it. So that is how they would prove taqlid from this statement of the Imam alayhi salam. And then those who try to prove wilayat al-faqih, they go as follows. Imam alayhi salam says, all events that will occur, you have to refer to jurists. To do what? To obey them. And they are the hujjah of Imam alayhi salam. And all major minor things a society faces, they have to obey and they have to follow the jurists. And amongst the jurists, the most qualified one. He may not be the most knowledgeable one, but the most qualified one. And this person is the hujjah. This person is the divinely appointed guide that has been appointed by the Holy Imam alayhi salam. He is the deputy, therefore we have to listen to him. And if he decides to form a government, that's his prerogative. That's his privilege. He forms a government. He is the one. If Shia can form a government, then he should be forming government, because we have to listen to him. We have to obey him. There is no election. They don't have any legitimacy. There is no legitimacy for the will of people or the votes of the people. And there is no other leader recognized by Islam, by the Imam alayhi salam, except the jurist. Therefore, he has this authority. When he has this authority, that he is the hujjah of Imam alayhi salam, and we have to obey him in every aspect of our lives, this clearly illustrates for us wilayat al-faqih, the guardianship of the faqih. And one aspect of his guardianship is government, rulership, that he controls the government, he controls the treasury, he controls the armed forces, he controls the media, he has the last word over the various departments that work for the government. All of them, every part of society have to listen to this one person. He has to be very busy, obviously. He has to have a directive for everyone, right? So this is how they use this hadith, both parties. And is this argument sound? Is this argument valid? Is the Imam alayhi salatu wassalam really stating that? So what pertains to our discussion here is really taqlid. Wilayat al-faqih is secondary for another time, but perhaps you will understand when I reject taqlid, that will become also very clear. The problem, what is the problem with this discussion? First and foremost, the majority of jurists themselves, they consider this hadith unreliable. End of story. This is not universally accepted as a credible and authentic hadith. And the majority of jurists, they regard this hadith as weak and unreliable. So you cannot base such important matters or any religious matter at all on a weak hadith. Weak hadith is a weak hadith, unreliable. It cannot prove anything. It's just a possibility. When a hadith is weak, it means probably the Imam alayhi salam said it, probably he didn't say it. We don't know. That's what it means. Maybe he said it, maybe he doesn't say it. We're not sure. Therefore, we cannot be sure. This is a tenet of Islam. Therefore, it cannot prove anything. If you have a document, a passport that could be real, that could be genuine, and could be false. So if you try, or if you have an airline ticket, right? It could be true, it could be valid ticket, or we don't know. Or it could be fake. You go to the airline, they will not let you fly. They will not let you fly. If you have a passport or a visa that the visa inspector at the port of entry analyzes, and he is not sure this visa is valid or not valid, he's not going to let you in. He says, go bring a visa that is correct and valid without any doubt, because this I'm not sure this is correct. Therefore, in any legal matter, a proof, a deed, an evidence that's not solid, that doesn't prove that point. In any scholarly matter, any matter that pertains to knowledge, to any discipline in science, if a proof is not conclusive, it's not conclusive. End of story. So the majority of scholars, including Hui and Khomeini and Sistani, they do not consider this hadith reliable. So end of story. Furthermore, what is important here, the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam says refer to whom? Refers to narrators of hadith. He doesn't say refer to jurists. So if I tell you, if you work for me, you are my employee, and I give you, let's say $20 an hour for you work for me, and I tell you, you have to, let's say, fix this computer. This computer is broken. I'm going to pay you $70 an hour, $80 an hour, fix this computer. And instead you decide to clean the bathroom. Instead, you decide to dust off the bookshelves. Have you listened to me? Have you really followed my directives? No. If you are my employee and I'm supposed to follow your directives, you tell me to set up this computer, I have to set up this computer. And if you tell me to set up this computer and instead I go clean the bathroom, then you did not listen to me. Then probably you'll be fired, right? Likewise, the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam tells you to go to Mecca. Go to Mecca. And instead you decide to go to Syria. Instead you decide to go to Egypt. Have you listened to the Holy Imam alayhi salam? No, you have not. Obviously not listened to him. You have not obeyed him. And you have done something that he has not asked you to do. The Imam alayhi salam said, go. Go to whom? Refer to whom? Ruwat al-hadith. Ruwat al-hadithina. Narrators of our hadith. He did not say muftis. He did not say the jurists. And they are not the same. And that is important. And inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, with the help of Allah, we are going to establish this point. That Rawi is not the same as Mujtahid. The notion, the conception, the idea, the meaning of the word narrator is different than a jurist. Likewise, there are two different ideologies, two different methods, two different patterns. Inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, we'll talk about that. And more, furthermore, the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثُ الْوَاقِعَةِ. This is not clear. And if a text is ambiguous, and we are talking about texts and textual understanding, and accuracy and textual understanding is quite important. If we are basing our argument on a text. If text is clear on a certain subject, that is a blessing. And we have to recognize that. Likewise, equally as important is the fact that if a text is ambiguous, we have to understand and recognize that text is ambiguous, right? Now this text here, وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثُ الْوَاقِعَةِ, the events that could have all these different meanings, that will occur in the future, that has occurred in the past, that are occurring today in some area, we don't know. None of that is clear to us. Which events he's talking about? So as long as that is ambiguous, for you to interpret this text as all the events that are going to happen in our lives, in our daily lives, or our family lives, that is stretching the hadith in a way that the text of the hadith does not allow such a stretching. That is interpreting the text of hadith in a manner that is not justified. Looking at the text of the hadith, if hadith was clearly indicative of the meaning that you are purporting, which is namely that all events that shall happen in our lives, then yes, we have to be submissive to the words of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and that would be the meaning of hadith. However, you are doing this without any justification. Such interpretation doesn't have any justification. And grand mujtahids, respected mujtahids, have confessed and have admitted that matter. So let's go to some books of mujtahideen on this subject. التنقيح في شرح العروة, the book of تنقيح by خوئي, Abu al-Qasim al-Khoui. Here we go. This volume number 1 of تنقيح, the book that pertains to Taqlid, and we go to page 302. He goes, وكذلك الحال في التوقيع الشريف فإن في سند إسحاق بن يعقوب ومحمد بن عصام ولم تثبت وثاقتهما. This توقيع, this letter, comprises 3 individuals. Muhammad, what are the 3 individuals? Ishaq ibn Yaqub, Muhammad ibn Isam, and Muhammad ibn Yaqub al-Kulayni. So Muhammad ibn Yaqub al-Kulayni, we know, the author of Kafi. However, the other 2 individuals, Muhammad ibn Isam and Ishaq ibn Yaqub, we do not, even if we know them, they're not trustworthy. Their trustworthy has not been attested to. Therefore, the hadith is weak. The hadith is not reliable. So Khoui strikes this hadith as weak. The end of the story. According to a grand section, a major section of Shia jurists who are on the same field as Khoui, and who maintain the same criterion of validating hadith as Khoui, such as Wahid Khurasani, such as Ali Sistani, and the rest. This hadith is not reliable. End of story, right? And also, فإن إرجاع الحديث إلى رواة الحديث ظاهره الإرجاع إليهم بما هم رواة لا بما أنهم مجتهدون. Furthermore, he goes, the hadith is asking us to refer to narrators of hadith in their capacity as narrators of hadith, not in their capacity as mujtahid. Therefore, it doesn't have anything to do with taqlid. You refer to a marja. You follow a marja because he's a mujtahid in his capacity as a mujtahid. The hadith is not referring you to mujtahid. He's referring you to a rawi, to a narrator. Even if he's not a mujtahid, you have to go to him. So, because the hadith is commanding you to go to rawi, to narrator of hadith, and not a mujtahid, this is not helpful to prove taqlid. This book is Al-Ijtihad wa Taqlid by Khomeini. Khomeini, Mr. Khomeini, famous or notorious? Which one? Khomeini. Many people hold him in high regard, but not me. Okay, Khomeini page 99 of his book. This book is Al-Ijtihad wa Taqlid. His book is authorship dedicated to the topic of Ijtihad and Taqlid. So page 99 here, he discusses the hadith وأما الحوادث الواقعة فارجعوا فيها إلى رواة حديثنا فإنهم حجتي عليكم وأنا حجة الله. Same letter that we are discussing here, and that one sentence from that letter. And then he goes next page, and he rejects Khomeini outright rejects that this hadith can prove taqlid for two reasons. Reason number one, بعد الضعف التوقيع سندا. Reason number one, this is unreliable narration. This is not a credible narration, and Khomeini is wrong. Likewise, Hui is mistaken. They are in error. The hadith is not weak. The hadith is credible. That is because my criteria for judging a hadith's validity is different than Khomeini and Hui. However, Khomeini and Hui are very well-known mujtahid, and they represent a big segment of the population of the jurists in our time, and they consider this hadith unreliable. Therefore, this hadith can neither prove taqlid nor wilayat al-faqih. And who is this? Khomeini, the same person who supposedly founded the first Islamic government, at any rate. Second reason why Khomeini considers this hadith not helpful in proving taqlid. إن صدره غير منقول إلينا ولعله كان مكتنفا بقرائن لا يفهم منه إلا حجة حكمهم في الشبهات الموضوعية أو العام وكان الإرجاع في القضاء لا في الفتوى. He says the letter that was written by Ishaq ibn Yaqub, in response to which this letter was written by the Holy Imam alayhi salatu wassalam, has not been narrated to us. So we do not know what was the question. So we have no clue what events is the Imam alayhi salam referring to. وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثُ الْوَاقِعَةِ. Which events? Perhaps it could be some occurrences, some incidents that pertain to things that are not of any relevance to taqlid. They're related to the things that property or something that people could have a dispute over, and they need someone to make an arbitration, or they could have any event. It could be anything. So it could have it could be about those events or those incidents that occurred at that time, and it was known to the person who wrote the letter. He knows what events he's referring to. So we do not know. Therefore, this hadith cannot prove the hujjah of fatwa. This hadith cannot prove that the word of the jurist is what we have to follow in taqlid is valid. This is the statement of Khomeini. Let's go to Matarih al-Anzar by Sheikh, the grandest Sheikh, Murtada to Ahl al-Bayt alayhim wassalam, page number 291. And he is talking about taqlid. And at the end of the page, he's going to be talking about the hadith in question. The gist of, I don't have to read the entirety of it in Arabic and translate it to you. The gist of what Shaykh al-Murtada al-Ansari says, that وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثُ الْوَاقِعَةِ. Same thing. The events that have occurred, the events that will occur, the events that are occurring now, all events, some events, we do not know what events the Imam alayhi salam is talking about. And because we do not know what events the Imam alayhi salam is talking about, we cannot be sure that Imam alayhi salatu wasalam is talking about all events that will happen in one's life and all events that will take place in the future, in the society's life, or the person's life, or the questions of halal and haram. We cannot be sure about that. Which events the Imam alayhi salam is talking about, we do not know. Therefore, for us to claim that this hadith is talking about only the halal and haram, the questions of halal and haram, so we could prove taqlid, or all events that will happen in future. Such assertion is without any proof. Such assertion is without any evidence. Such an assertion is a claim that is a claim not based on facts. Therefore, the hadith is ambiguous. We cannot prove any of those points from this hadith. Furthermore, he goes, because Muhammad ibn Ishaq ibn Yaqub, the person who wrote this letter, who wrote the original letter, asking question from the Imam alayhi salam, we know he's a high-level scholar. He is a grand scholar himself. So it's not likely that he wrote to the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam about questions of halal and haram, that whom he should be following, doing taqlid of. Because he doesn't need to do taqlid. He is himself a respected scholar. He doesn't need to do taqlid. And at the outset of this letter, it is mentioned that Ishaq ibn Yaqub said that there were questions that were difficult for me, questions that were burden over me. I posed those questions to the Imam alayhi salam. Therefore, this is a clue for us that this person, on the one hand, is a very respected and knowledgeable scholar of his time. On the other, this person is saying that I'm asking about some difficult question that I don't know the answers. So we can deduce from that that he was not asking whom should I follow in taqlid, who should I do a taqlid of, because he doesn't need to do taqlid in these questions. And perhaps he was asking about something that related to beliefs, something that happened historically. And he's asking how the details of which, how should I find out? The Imam alayhi salam says, go to the narrators of hadith. Okay. Now, you saw, and these Khuyi, Khomeini, Murtada al-Ansari, they are very important individuals, especially as far as knowledge is concerned and scholarly respect is concerned, Khuyi and Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari, because they have, there's a very wide reverence for their level of knowledge and for their in-depth understanding of jurisprudence and principles of jurisprudence. Not so much Khomeini, but Khuyi and Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari. And they reject the notion that this hadith can prove taqlid. Let's talk about this hadith. وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثُ الْوَاقِعَةُ فَارْجِعُوا فِيهَا إِلَى رُوَاةِ حَدِيثِنَا. When the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam wrote this letter, although we do not know, as Khuyi said and the others have said, that al-hawadith al-waqi'ah, the events, these events that have occurred or will occur or occurring now, specific events, all events, we do not know. The term events here is ambiguous, although we do not know that. However, the saying of the Imam alayhi salam, فَارْجِعُوا فِيهَا إِلَى رُوَاةِ حَدِيثِنَا, and these events refer to and take counsel of and deliberate with the narrators of our hadith. This is clear. Even if this meant, this statement of the Imam alayhi salam meant al-hawadith, events, all events, it meant that. Or events that pertain to halal and haram. Even if that meant that, this still is alien to taqlid, this statement. This doesn't prove taqlid. This rather proves our point. This rather proves the methodology that I am promoting, and that is that we have to follow hadith, and we have to learn hadith from teachers of hadith, from narrators of hadith. That proves our point. The Imam alayhi salatu wasalam says, refer to narrators of hadith. Narrators of hadith. So Imam alayhi salam is not saying, go follow mujtahideen and jurists and do their taqlid. And at that time, when this was written, this letter was written and issued in the time of the minor occultation, there was no ambiguity as far as the meaning of narrators of hadith is concerned. At that time, there was no ijtihad in the Shia community. There was no jurisprudence as we have today. There was no fiqh as we have today in those days amongst the Shia. There were narrators of hadith. And grand narrators of hadith, respected narrators of hadith, people with vast authorships, people who had written myriads of books on various topics, all of them encompassing hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, collections of hadith. There were many at the time, and there was no jurisprudence amongst the Shia and Shia in those days. And their halal and haram, they followed hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam. So, the saying of Imam alayhi salam, even if we interpret in the following way, that Imam alayhi salam says, in all events that shall occur in your life, that will occur in your life, that will take place in the society, you refer to the narrators of hadith. Narrators of hadith. And what does a narrator of hadith do? The term narrators of hadith explains. They narrate hadith, they teach hadith, they simplify hadith to a person who doesn't understand hadith well. And that was what was the work and the conduct of narrators of hadith at that time. This book is Kifayatul Usul by Akhund al-Khurasani, published by Ahlul Bayt Foundation, which is run by Sistani's office. This book was published in Beirut, page 299. La yadhhab alayk. And Akhund al-Khurasani is a very revered figure in jurisprudence, and especially so in the principles of jurisprudence. And his book, Kifayatul Usul, is that holy text for mujtahideen and jurists, that all mujtahideen, since this book has been written, all of their lectures of Kharij are based on this text. Their lectures of Kharij on some subject of principles of jurisprudence, all of them, without any exception. And his theories and his ideas are always brought up and analyzed, and he's respected for his in-depth and very, very far-reaching thought. So Akhund says, on page 299 of this book, which is greatly respected and admired and studied in depth, endlessly in the seminaries. Sometimes the study of this book takes many years, and sometimes the Bahth al-Kharij, the Kharij lecture on this, usually Sheikh Wa'id al-Khurasani, it used to take 10 years to finish this book. لا يذهب عليك أنه ليس حال الرواة في الصدر الأول في نقل ما تحملوا من النبي صلى الله عليه وآله أو الإمام. The narrators who were at the early era of Islam, the time of the Nabi صلى الله عليه وآله, or the time of the holy Imams عليهم السلام, the narrators from them, they were not mujtahid. They were just like إلا كحال نقلة الفتاوى إلى العوام. They would transmit rulings of halal and haram, what's permissible and what's not permissible, laws of Islam, to their communities, just like the narrators of fatwa do today. Who is a narrator of fatwa today in your society? Your local imam, your local masjid, resident alim, right? If you live in London, there are several centers, there are several mosques, Shia mosques in London. And every mosque, perhaps every mosque is attached to a certain marja, and there is a representative of a marja. And this representative of a marja, what is his job? His job is to deliver the fatwa, the verdicts, the opinions from the marja to his followers. Does he do his own ijtihad? No. All he does is take the fatwa from marja and explain that, because the marja doesn't speak English or doesn't speak other languages, so he translates it and he transmits it to the people. If some explanation is needed, he explains. However, he explains to the best of his ability in conformity to original text of the marja. That's what they do. So, in the time of the holy Imams alayhim salatu wasalam, transmitters of hadith, they were not mujtahids. They didn't do their own ijtihad. They did not opine. They did not spread their own teachings. They simply transmitted the hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. تقريرات of Mirza Hassan al-Shirazi, volume number 4. أن متعارفة في ذلك الزمان أن كل من يفتي بشيء كان إفتاؤه بنقل الحديث الوارد في الواقع المسؤول عنها. What was customary in the times of the holy Imams alayhim as-salam and the eras after that was any time a scholar had to issue a fatwa, what would he do? He would simply narrate the hadith that was relevant to the question that was in front of him. So, fatwa was hadith, verdict was hadith, verbiage was the verbiage of the Imam alayhi salam. So, fatwa was simply issuing the verdict, was simply narration of hadith. So there was no exercise of ijtihad. So, coming back to the hadith of the 12th Imam alayhi salam, the letter, وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثُ الْوَاقِعَةُ فَارْجِعُوا فِيهَا إِلَى رُوَاةِ حَدِيثِنَا. The events, even if we translate this hadith as the mujtahideen would desire, all the events that should occur in your life, and these events refer to and learn from and deliberate with and take counsel of the narrators of hadith. Okay, when this letter was written, when this letter was not written today, this letter was written at the time of the minor occultation, over 1,170 years ago, or more, or less. That's the beginning of minor occultation. 1,100 years ago, perhaps 1,130 years ago. So at that time when this was reached the reader, you have to refer to narrators of hadith. These narrators of hadith were not mujtahid. So Imam alayhi salam was not commanding people to go to mujtahid. Narrator of hadith simply doesn't mean mujtahid. Doesn't mean mujtahid. A person could be a narrator of hadith and may not be mujtahid. As all these scholars said, that those narrators of hadith were not mujtahid. Let me show you this statement. This is Sistani's teacher, Shaykh Hussein al-Hilli, volume number 6. He says, أن الظاهر أن جميع من يروي عنهم عليهم السلام وكذلك من يروي عنه كلهم رواة غير مجتهدين. All the peoples, all the individuals who have narrated from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the holy Imams alayhim salam, all of them, they were narrators. None of them was a mujtahid. None of them was a mujtahid. So when this letter was written at that time, they were not mujtahid. Narrator doesn't mean mujtahid. None of the narrators, according to this very respected jurist, none of the narrators, they were mujtahid. So narrator doesn't mean mujtahid. Mujtahid does not mean narrator. There are two different notions. And at that time, narrators were not mujtahideen. So Imam alayhi salam, if you Shia, you individual who is watching my address now, if you were at that time when this letter was written, and this letter reached you, you read this letter, the Imam alayhi salam says, in all events that occur, you should go to narrators of our hadith. You would know what to do. Those narrators of hadith, they were leaders of Shia community. They were respected scholars in Shia community. If you were in Qom, there were many narrators. If you're in Kufa, there were many narrators. And they were narrators. The term narrators mean narrator, and they were not mujtahids. So in order to stretch this meaning of narrator to encompass something that it does not include, that is also a great transgression and against a great offense that doesn't have any justification, that's not based on any fact. Okay, let me end my lecture here. May Allah bless you. We'll continue. We will continue this discussion. Let me have a look at your comments. So I have some comments from Facebook and some from Facebook and some from what you call YouTube. Okay. Sheikh, can you make some Islamic theology in fiqh videos? I watched your one on hijab in the Quran. It was very good. Please make more. Okay, inshallah we'll make more. Time permitting. Then he goes, Sheikh, I know Rijali science is taken from Sunnis, but the narrators, if they are deemed unreliable by Al-Majlisi, for example, should we make... So this is a subject that you don't know much about, okay? And I cannot answer this briefly, okay? This you need a little more detail. That right now is not the time for that detail. Inshallah, in the right time, I'll explain this. Sheikh, I know you're against Wilayat Faqih, but surely having a state with Muslim principles isn't that bad. It's very bad. It's very, because there is no state with Muslim principles. It is. We have to understand there is no Muslim state without the Holy Imam alayhi salam. Without the Holy Imam alayhi salam, there is no Muslim state. You think it's a good idea. It's a very bad idea, because it's all man-made things that have been made sacred by fraud, by lies. So rulings, laws, that none of them are from Allah, from the Creator of the heavens and the earth. And we lie to people and we say these are from Allah. And we make a state out of that, all right? And Allah did not make us rulers. And Allah did not give us any guidance how to form a state, how to form a government. And we are going to do that. So this is, first of all, dishonest. It's a lie. The whole thing is a fraud. There's no such thing as Islamic state. And then we rule over people in the name of the Prophet, in the name of Imam alayhi salam, based on lies. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did not appoint us as rulers. The Imams alayhi salam did not appoint us as rulers, and we became their rulers. And that is a lie. And then what happens when we make mistakes, right? We make errors. Then we justify it by hadith and Quran. And then people start doubting hadith and Quran. Because whenever I make a mistake or I transgress, I abuse someone, my pretext is Quran and hadith. And I'm so good, I convince people that my action is consistent with Quran and hadith. And that is what Quran and hadith is saying. So the abuse is actually coming from Quran and hadith. And therefore, many of my subjects would not like Quran and hadith, because they will see that Quran and hadith are abusive. And of course you would think that, okay, but the people would know that I'm making a mistake. Some people would know that I'm making a mistake. And because I'm so good that anybody who opposes me from scholars, I kill him or imprison him. So scholars are silent, or even I give them so much money, I support them financially, so they are silent, or actually they endorse me. So most of the people would think what? That if all these scholars are saying that this is what Quran is saying, hadith is saying, then it's true. Quran and hadith are saying this. But these are wrong things that Quran and hadith is saying. So therefore, we don't want Quran and hadith. So that's why you see lots of people in Iran turning away from religion. Atheism is thriving in Iran. Why atheism is thriving in Iran? Because of this. Lots of youth have turned away from religion, and they've become atheists, or they have embraced Zoroastrianism. Why? Because of this fact. Because of this fact. So we should have Islamic proof. No, that's a lie. That's a fraud. This is dishonest. Yeah, it suits me. I become your ruler, and you respect me because you think I'm the representative of the Imam alayhi salam, and I'm ruling over you in the name of Allah. I'm Allah's representative. Yeah, it's good for me, but it's a lie. It's a fraud, and it's unjust to Quran and Sunnah, and this is not what Allah wanted. If Allah wanted us, non-ma'soom, fallible individuals, to form a government, and He saw us worthy of that, He would have said so. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would have said so. There were clear instructions for us that you, without an imam, you should form a government like this, and these are the principles, and these are rules and laws. The Imams alayhi salam did not do that. Rather, they asked us to wait for the time when the Imam alayhi salam comes and he forms the government. Until that day, there is no Islamic government. I know we can only be led by the Imam, but a state with 50-70 Muslims, morals, with 50 to 70% Muslims, morals is an alternative. Alternative to what? Alternative to what? I don't understand. It's alternative to what? So brother goes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I send you and your family love and respect. Best wishes from Germany. Thank you, brother. May Allah bless you. May Allah keep you well. You taught me the most of my deen. I was a Sunni. Stay blessed and protected. You are my living shahid. Love. Thank you. May Allah bless you and keep you well, brother. Muhammad Huwa says, are you saying Taqlid of Maraja is completely against our Aqidah? No, of course, that's what I'm saying. This is the 16th lecture. That's what I've been saying. Where were you? It was a very interesting lecture. Sheikh, thank you so much for your time. May Allah bless you, Batul. Thank you. Incarnations. Incarnation is kufr. Incarnation is wrong. In our hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, there is no incarnation. Okay. May Allah bless you all. Allah keep you well. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. May Allah bless you all.
Janam Hussein